Hi there, guys. Welcome to the Holy Shed. And look, we've got decorations all around for our third birthday. Hurrah! But first of all, I just need to make a little confession, which is, and some of you will know this, I ain't actually in the Holy Shed. No, I'm here in London where we've been for the past little while, and just going back to Somerset later on tonight. So that means, by the way, that if any of you send a card or anything, because I know some of you are a bit want to do that, uh, I won't have it until later tonight. So don't worry, I will include it on another occasion as soon as possible. Meanwhile, hey, a lot of things came out of the pandemic, right? Devastating loss of life, uh, injury to mental health, goodness knows what. But also, some good things emerged, including this. And who'd have thought? I certainly didn't think that I would be here 3 years on, still sitting here talking to you through my laptop. But a massive thank you to all of you who've been part of this journey, whether you started way back there at the beginning 3 years ago or you just joined us for the first time tonight. Thank you for being part of the journey, you lovely people. And who knows where next? I don't know, I'm still trying to work that out. But right now, I would like to introduce a word from our sponsor, our area bishop, who we haven't actually heard from lately. But I can assure you that Bishop Robin has been very busy beavering away. To Robin's beaver, I don't know, in the background, keeping an eye on things, keeping track on me, sometimes taking me to task. But here she is today in a rather more celebratory tone. Over to you, Bishop Robin. You know, sometimes I haven't got the faintest clue what she's saying, but I get the gist of it. I think it was all very well intentioned and fine voice, hey, and what wonderful vestments. Thank you so much for that, Bishop. Well, there will be more celebrations in a little bit, including cake eating, I promise you, and a drink, of course, and a couple of messages from people with their happy birthdays. Oh, and just check out my t shirt, by the way. See that? It's a special birthday t shirt, which you can have one of if you want. I'll tell you a bit more about that later on. Excuse me, but first, I want to continue with our Lent theme. So, just hang on to your celebrations for a few moments. If you really need to nibble your cake, I won't judge you for that. But, I want to press on for a few minutes. And as we carry on thinking about the Sermon on the Mount, it's important, I think, to remind ourselves that we're not really dealing with a particular sermon that Jesus gave one day. It's more of a compilation of his sayings and teachings, a sampling of his greatest hits, woven together by Matthew for his gospel. Today we'll focus on surely one of the greatest hits of the Sermon on the Mount, of the entire New Testament actually, what we call the Lord's Prayer. A prayer that, is repeated, has been repeated regularly by successive generations of Christians in myriad languages around the world for 2,000 years and still going strong. Now that really is a hit. It's the prayer, of course, of the church, but more than that, it's the only prayer that many or most non-church British people could quote from or maybe even recite whole, usually in King James English. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, etc. I mean, there's a rhythm and cadence to the Lord's Prayer, especially in Shakespearean English, that sort of embeds itself in the subconscious. I mean, it's a poem, after all, which strangely emanates a sense of assurance, especially in times of need or trouble. There's a familiarity about it, a bit like an old friend who, we often forget about or take for granted, but suddenly turn to in times of distress. I'm regularly asked by relatives of deceased loved ones if the prayer will be included in the funeral service. And I watch people who mostly never go near a church mouthing the words that appear weirdly comforting. Of course, it's not the words that count or even register with those kinds of people. The words simply float intuitively through the mind like the lyrics of an old song. It's the process of repeating them that counts, not the words themselves. Bit like a mantra, and none the worse for that. Mantras serve the very important purpose of closing down and quieting an overactive, troubled mind and engaging the heart and spirit instead. So that's important. But in the context of the rest of the Sermon on the Mount, the content of the prayer is important. It's magnificently important, actually. As I see it, the whole sermon is a kind of manifesto for the kingdom or the reign of God. And the Lord's Prayer is like this cameo in the middle of it. It's a kind of poetic mini manifesto, an invocation of the kingdom of God, something that when we say the Lord's Prayer, we very easily overlook because of our familiarity with it. But actually, it's dynamite. It's a summons to revolution. We think of it, of course, excuse me, as a Christian prayer. But Jesus wasn't a Christian at all. He was a Jew. And it's a Jewish prayer. Although John Dominic Crossan, I think, puts it really well when he suggests that, in fact, it's now, as we know it, neither a Jewish prayer for Jews nor a Christian prayer for Christians, but rather, as he says, a prayer from the very heart of Judaism on the lips of Christianity for the conscience of the world. It is indeed, he says, a revolutionary manifesto and a hymn of hope for all humanity. Fantastic, fantastic words there. Prayer from the heart of Judaism on the lips of Christianity for the conscience of the world. The Lord's Prayer contains no explicitly Christian dogma or doctrine, nothing that a Jew couldn't pray, or possibly a Muslim. There is a Muslim prayer, actually, which many believe is a version of or is based upon the Lord's Prayer. So there's a universality to this prayer. It's revolutionary because it presumes and proclaims the radical vision of justice, which is the core of Hebrew biblical tradition. It's a hymn because it presumes and produces poetic techniques that are at the core of Hebrew biblical poetry. Now, I know that the opening words to the prayer can be problematic to many of us in an age when inclusive values of gender equality are a given for sensible people. The prayer assumes and reinforces over the centuries the belief that God is male, our Father. Well, there are two things to say to this. First of all, it's obvious that the entire Bible prefers male language and imagery when speaking of God. There are exceptions, but overwhelmingly the language and imagery is male, and that's just a fact. However, this really just reflects the patriarchal background of the Bible and of the biblical writers in a culture and tradition of male priority. But that's got nothing, absolutely nothing, no lasting significance to do with divine gender or biology. Of course it doesn't. It's a quirk, a phenomenon of history, nothing more. And it has no authority in terms of an ongoing understanding of God or as a way to address God. And I think there is great power and virtue in sometimes, even if you're not used to it and it feels awkward, ditching the father or the male imagery and instead inserting mother or female imagery. There's a whole different feel to that kind of language, and maybe particularly significant on Mothering Sunday. But secondly, as John Dominic Crossan argues, father, in the context of this prayer, really signifies the householder, a responsible figure for a family, probably for an extended family, a community. In praying this prayer, therefore, we are calling upon the great householder, who could be either male or female, but biblical authors naturally assumed would be male, but a great householder who cares about the state of the household, who's concerned about events going on within the household, who cares, for example, if half the kids are starving and half are stuffed to overflowing. The good householder naturally wills the inclusion and well-being of everybody. Martin Luther King embodied that vision, really. He had a similar kind of vision, or a dream, of a great world house where all were equal and included at the welcome table. It's what he called the beloved community. And along with this beautiful icon by Kelly Lattimore, we have the words that Martin Luther King wrote when he said, "We have inherited a large house, a great world house, in which we have to live together, black and white, Easterner and Westerner, Gentile and Jew, Catholic and Protestant, Muslim and Hindu, a family unduly separated in ideas, culture and interest, who, because we can never again live apart, must learn somehow to live with each other in peace." Fantastic. Now, like Martin Luther King, who saw the beloved community as, he saw it as a reality to pursue here and now, not some vision of the sweet by and by. And in a similar way, the Lord's Prayer says nothing really about going to heaven when we die. It's not about escaping an evil world for a glorious home in the blue far beyond. No, it's about earth becoming imbued with heaven. Life on earth, according to this prayer, should be heaven for everyone, as the wonderful Freddie Mercury put it in his song. The prayer calls us to work together toward that end in whatever ways that we can, be they large or small. And that's how, I believe, we hallow God's name. Not through singing hymns and praises and waving our arms about and all that, but by living the kingdom into daily reality. As things stand, of course, our world house is pretty run down. Appears to be just all moving in the wrong direction, with increasing economic inequality, with the horrors of war and conflict, with suffering, with racism and all kinds of hatred, plus, of course, a planet in dramatic crisis through human-induced climate change. So this is not the global household that was envisaged by the Hebrew prophets of old or by Jesus. The heart and soul of the Lord's Prayer lies in this one line: "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." It's the whole prayer compressed into one statement. It's actually the whole Sermon on the Mount compressed into one statement. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Archbishop William Temple, back in the early 20th century, wrote that Christianity is the most materialistic of all the religions, which is great, but very easily misunderstood. Of course, he didn't mean materialistic in the sense of, chasing wealth and all that kind of stuff. He meant it in the sense of being concerned with life in the material world. And actually, I think now he would have said with the material planet itself. But he certainly meant concerned about poverty and inequality, committed to the well-being of all. That, he said, is right there at the heart of Christianity. Now, as I say, the spirituality of the Lord's Prayer is not a spirituality of escape to a heaven elsewhere, but rather a spirituality of seeking the kingdom of God, of pursuing the divine will for a just and loving world in the here and now. The prayer's orientation is set right at the start by the very first word, our. The Lord's Prayer is an our prayer, not a my prayer, but an our prayer. It's communal, not personal. But it's not the kind of communal which is tribal or sectarian. It's not your will be done among us, your will be done in the church or among Christians, but your will be done on earth, the whole earth, among all peoples. The scope of the prayer, as I say, is set right at the start. Our Father. It's universal. Our Father. God, the householder of the world, cannot possibly be the God simply of Christians or of church folk. Such a God would be far too small, too petty, too sectarian. In the beginning, we're told in Genesis, God created the earth. Not our bit of the earth, but the whole earth. And God created human beings, not just us, but everyone. Not Jews or Christians or Muslims or Hindus, but humans. The earth, it says in the Psalms, is the Lord's. We're all part of this great world house. We're all part of the family. We're all God's children, whether we believe this or that or the other, whether we acknowledge it or not. Or even if, like the prodigal, we've wandered far from home and forgotten what it is to be part of this. So the prayer says, give us this day our daily bread. Not give me my daily bread, but give us, give us, give us. And to pray these words is to commit to bread for all. No one can be properly fed until all are fed. We're all interconnected. The original version of the prayer almost certainly read, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. That's what's mostly agreed. But we ended up with other words. We ended up with trespasses and then sins. Trespasses, it's a bit of a weird word really, isn't it, relating to property. Sin is to do with rule breaking, but debt has to do with money and other practical obligations. There's a practical and economic dimension to the Lord's Prayer. It is not pie in the sky. It's not super spiritual stuff. It's about real life. Ancient people would understand that. They would understand the original version clearly. We need bread for today, they would say. Absolutely. But we also need no debt for tomorrow. These really were the two nightmare scenarios for peasant people. No bread today and debt tomorrow. But you know what? That's the plight, actually, of millions of people across the globe right now. I mean, for God's sake, it's the plight of people right here in this country, where the choice for many seems to have become eating or heating. And how the hell are we going to pay our bills tomorrow? It's essential to read the Lord's Prayer in the context of the Sermon on the Mount as a whole, which is all about these things. It's all about practical earthly things, about anger and poverty, about abusive relationships, about reconciliation and peacemaking, about loving one's enemies. It's about how we deal with money. It's about restorative justice and the redistribution of wealth. It's a manifesto for a just, compassionate, and peaceable world, God's kingdom. The problem is that the Lord's Prayer is often ripped out of this context and placed into a liturgical context in which very often it just becomes spiritualized, interpreted individualistically, but basically tamed, domesticated, churched into a stupor. I think this prayer, in essence, its content, in essence, can change the world. But it's important to remember that it is a prayer. Yes, it's a manifesto for a different world, but it's firstly a prayer, a reminder that transformation has a spiritual dimension. We're not doing it on our own. I don't believe the world can be changed without a spiritual revelation too. You say you want a revolution, the Beatles sang. You better free your mind instead. Well, there's a great deal of truth in that, which is come away from all your theories and your high ideas and your banner waving and walk the walk. And that's very important. But perhaps even more, if we want revolution, we need to open ourselves to a spiritual dimension, to spiritual revolution. I'm not saying everyone become Christians, of course not, but I'm saying that there's a spiritual dimension that is very important, both personally and communally. And that, I think, is really what this prayer is about. I don't think there's any problem with, praying it as just part of our weekly or even daily liturgy. That's a wonderful thing. But sometimes we just need to pause a minute and say, but what the heck is this prayer speaking, and how do we deal with the challenge that it throws up? Well, I think one way we can do that is to actually do our own rewriting of the prayer, not so that will then become something that will be used instead of. There's great virtue in a prayer that is unchanging across different generations and different cultures. But I think that, just as an exercise of hermeneutics, if you like, it's worthwhile, digging it over and rewriting it. And I challenge you to write your own version of the Lord's Prayer. And when you've done it, I would love to see it. Please do send it to me. But here's one I wrote earlier. Creator God, Mother and Father of all, life-giving breath of the universe, the beauty of your transforming presence reverberate through every particle of space and time. Your peaceable kingdom fill the world with justice, equity and kindness. Your heavenly purpose come to fruition in every nation, every corner of earth. May there be bread and nourishment for all, debt-free lives with enough for today and hope for tomorrow. In testing times, may we remain faithful. In periods of adversity, resilient. For you reign in the power of love alone, now and always. Amen. Yeah, have a go. Write your own. Send it to me. But anyway, enough piety. We need some cakery. And Pat is just sitting here. She's gonna come and join me, actually. Look, there she is there. The one and only lovely Pat, whose smile could melt an ice cap. Now, she's got some cake here, and she's going to, not that I'm being, paternalistic, but Pat's going to cut the cake and give me a little bit. So if you've got some cake, I invite you to get that now, if you haven't eaten it all already. And mine is coffee and walnut. Salt Sainsbury had, but I love it. Not a pretty size eating cake on screen, but hope you're enjoying yours too. And as you do that, let me just flag up some messages that people sent in about today. If you can bear to listen to this while you're eating your cake, here are a few. Natasha from Australia says, hi Dave, writing to you to say a massive thank you for the Holy Shed. I listen faithfully every week. It is my sanity in a world often gone mad. Thank you for all your words of wisdom, encouragement and creativity. Please keep going, as there's nowhere else like the Shed I can find. Happy 3rd birthday. Kyra and Charlie say, happy 3rd birthday, Holy Shed. Still coming to church at the Shed on Sunday evenings with a glad heart and a gin and tonic. That's the way to do it, isn't it, really? Thank you, Dave and Pat, for your ministry to us Shedsters. Kerry, another person in Australia, in Melbourne, gives a list of things the Shed means to her. Too many for me to go into right now, but they're wonderful. A place where inquiry and curiosity are encouraged, she says. A space, a safe place to reflect on my thoughts, feelings, ask questions, learn to sit with mystery. An authentic place where the encumbrances of Christianity are stripped back and faith is real and authentic. Place of warmth and humour, where when the whole world seemed dark, Dave brought to life poems, art and music, a feast for the soul. And so it goes on. Oh, and she likes the sort of stay human and be kind that I often end with. So thank you, Dave, she says, for imagining the Shed, asking about our needs and creativity, responding to them. Thank you to you and Pat for 3 years. Stuart says, thanks, Dave. You're a great encouragement to all of us who try to make sense of faith in the world the way we live day by day. Anne says, happy birthday, Holy Shed, a beacon of light through some very dark days. Can't be with you today, but we'll catch up tomorrow. Sue Smith says, wouldn't miss it for anything. Linda It says, congratulations on 3 wonderful years in the Holy Shed. I hope that you know that your insights have been an inspiration and so very helpful to many people. And she says she found my insights on the Jesus' greatest hits fascinating and thought-provoking. It made her think about a blessing by John O'Donoghue, which says, may I have the courage today to live the life that I would love, to postpone my dream no longer, but do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more. Wow, fabulous words by John. Jane says, happy 3rd birthday, and huge thanks to you and Pat for bringing this wonderful community to the world. You've seen me through very bad times and very wonderful times, and I'm loving to learn. I shall be there with my cake next Sunday. Hey Jane, there's to you. Margaret says, thank you for all the comfort you give. I'm still struggling with the loss of my husband. I'm now about to sell my house and hopefully move into a flat. It's all very hard, but you can still make me think and also make me laugh. My God, that is so wonderful, Margaret. And it's a reminder, really, that, there are many of us in the shed who are going through difficult and hard times, and our heart goes out to you, Margaret. Frank says, your books and the Holy Shed are so life-affirming and uplifting. I'm currently asking lots of faith questions, and at times this feels very uncomfortable, but you inspire me to push on. Ali says, Dave, thank you so much for your generosity and time. Holy Shed has a very special place in my life. Just a couple more. Another Jane says, you speak such truth always. When I'm feeling disillusioned with the institution, which is the church, which is fairly often these days, you remind me of what is real and good. Thank you so much. Blah, blah, blah. Wonderful. Thank you, Jane. Someone else, I can't see who that is actually, says, oh no, I know what that is. I'll come to that in a minute. Celia says, happy birthday, Holy Shed. What a great way to spend an hour. And a huge thank you to Dave and Pat for their time and effort. I will be there with cake. Very good. But this one I just was looking at is the last one. And, well, nearly. And this one is from a fellow cleric called the Reverend Clinton Gribble. And I've known Clinton for quite a long time now. He came and performed on certain stages that I organised in years gone by. And, you may find yourself being a little bit suspicious of his reverend, but, hey, Clint is right in there. He says this, he says, Dear David, I was greatly pleased to hear that you are now enlivening your retirement years in the West Country by taking up a little hobby in your garden shed. And apparently you've been doing it for 3 years now. Congratulations and well done you. I understand you've even fixed up a camera so that people all around the world can watch you while you do things in your shed. How very brave. Of course, I've retired now too from my old parishes. I had Feltham in the Wold and then had 'em on the hill. He's a naughty boy. Alas, there are too many old tools in my garden shed to give me room for marquetry or making bookends. Though I must say, your watching birds with a long lens has given me some ideas. I read somewhere the other day about a chap called Samson who must have dozed off at the hairdresser and awoke to find he'd had a really bad haircut. His anger, all that pent-up energy, later led him to, I think this is right, push over several pillows. That's the gist of it anyway. I wonder if any of your shed followers ever have felt so pent up they want to really make the bed untidy. I know I have. Let us remember that fine old hymn, sadly not often heard nowadays. Let me be a shovel for the Lord and fork amongst the cabbages. Bless you and your tools, Reverend Clinton Gribble, DV. Fantastic. Can you follow that? Well, actually I can, because I have here this absolutely spiffingly marvellous birthday card for the Holy Shed, which, as you can see, has got Kevin here, our grand dog, and it says Shed Quarters over the top, and it's just a wonderful 3D. I wonder how they make these things. Fantastic. But it's from Angie in Cornwall, and we're very, very grateful for that. Thank you so much, Angie, and all of you who've sent in greetings. And whether you have or you haven't, you're honoured and treasured members of this shed community. So let's drink to that, should we? Oh, by the way, the shirt here, my Holy Shed birthday shirt. If you want one of them, they're just going to be available for a short time, for a couple of weeks actually, from this website here. And I've put at the bottom the kind of link for you to follow to get to that site. I'll put it on the Holy Shed Facebook page as well. And as I say, it's a kind of promo thing, and they're there for a couple of weeks, and the Holy Shed gets a little bit of the profit, not a lot, but I think they're great. I'm enjoying wearing mine. So, all that be done, let's pour out a little drink, whatever you've got handy. What are you whispering in my ear, Pat? She's a tinker, this lady here, you know. So, hey, I propose a toast to the Holy Shed, a toast to surviving the pandemic, and with loving thoughts to all those who didn't, and their loved ones who still grieve their loss, and people who are still struggling in the aftermath with it all. A toast to hope, to dreams and visions, to life, l'chaim. I pass to my wife in the hope that she won't immediately cough and look like she's just drunk some medicine, because I don't take well to my lovely whiskey being treated with such disdain. So far, so good. Great. Well, hey guys, we're just about over with our little birthday time together. If you like what I'm doing here, you like the Holy Shed, you can support us by buying us a coffee. You just have to follow the link on the screen now. It's always at the top of the posts on the Holy Shed Facebook page. I need more whiskey. And a million thanks to all of those of you who support us in this way and many other ways too. It is very much appreciated. And that's just about it, really. Throughout the pandemic and the Holy Shed and on Soul Space, we heard quite a lot from the wonderful Quaker singer, American singer, Carrie Newcomer. And it seems fitting to invite her to this little party and let her sing us out with a song called Room at the Table, which is very much about what we've been thinking over. And it's a wonderful video. I love this video. So enjoy this. Have a great week. Walk through this world, whatever it brings to you, with kindness to yourself and to other people. Stay human, and we'll meet again very soon. Bye.
Let our hearts not be hardened to those living on the margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is where it all begins. This is how we gather in. There is room at the table for everyone. Too long we have wandered, burdened and undone, but there is room at the table for everyone. Let us sing the new world in. This is how it all begins. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, there is room at the table for everyone. Here and now we can be the beloved community. There is